Okay. Nice. Chat window doesn't work yet, I guess. Why can't I see the chat here? Ah, it's gonna be here tonight. Oh, there is something. Nice. Hello, everyone. I'm starting an unsolicited transmission. Let's test the audio. Let's see if this thing works. The audio. Nice. Okay, I can hear myself. I'm only waiting for you guys. You can say hello in the chat. Hello. I will also send out the invitation on LinkedIn for anyone interested in this topic. So I will start shortly. Say hello, be kind, and unless it's about my code. Sorry, you cannot see me typing here. I really hope this thing works. Cool. I can see myself. I can see myself online. I've added a chat window. Maybe I will be doing some changes here and there about it. Slightly moving it up. Okay, now it should be more visible. And you should also see the chat because I tried to review yesterday's stream and I couldn't see the chat live. Although I had this option ticked, it wasn't working. So if you are here, just, yeah, you can also add some messages in the chat right now. I've also changed the mic to a shotgun mic because the lavalier mic I had was it's still wired, so I could not easily get off the chair, you know, all the fuss with taking it off and on. It started to bug me, so, but the audio should be also maybe of similar quality here. Unless you guys can hear some ticking noise, just let me know, because this guy is very sensitive for, especially for Wi-Fi frequencies. Okay, so yesterday we have ended up with events for the network, so we can detect the cached requests that were not going out of the browser. We've added all the listeners for intercept requests. This guy, the network request intercepted event, this method has been deprecated also, so we'll have to replace that with the new ones, and that's probably expected. And the rest of it, yeah, I did not make a decision about the event's timings, so right now they are still captured as they are arrive from the browser, but they also carry the timestamp, which I can use later on and have a more accurate measurements for the events. Although now that I think about it, when I was looking at the Sinos interface, I'm just going to show you, comparing to, for example, Tempo, if you have ever used that. Just going to open up a window here. Comparing to Tempo, for example, the events here do not make any difference, at least graphically, right? So you can, for example, if you look at the events here for my application, yeah, the Sinos here doesn't like me, because even when I do like select the time span, the relative time for one window, it doesn't get propagated later. That's a bit weird. I also do not like that. See here. Okay, the last 4 days enough. So let me show you how the events look like here. This is the get event. Are there any events here affiliated? Will be sent. So for example here, right? So I have an event, it will be sent, right? But it doesn't appear anywhere on the interface. It is not a big deal for the analysis, although like if you want to present something graphically and you want to check the differences between the events spawned here or detect some anomalies there, like I think Grafana by default does that better. It is maybe, of course, just me, but I'm kind of missing here the events because I was now when I was doing an instrumentation of Kafka protocols, I could see the events, flowing in when the message was like committed on the topic, when it was propagated back. I could see the whole timeline there. Right now, I don't see it anymore. So that's yeah, I guess a con for Sinos. I'm hoping I'm really pronouncing it right. But yeah, back to the topic. So you know what? I will also add this event on LinkedIn. If someone's interested, maybe they could just join linkedin.com. Yeah, I'm not signing on my web driver. Just gonna open up here. Okay, and I want the stream URL. Just a few minutes to get started. Nothing serious yet. Nothing advanced. Just waiting for you guys to show up, if there's anyone willing to. Yep. Where's my live events? Just give me a second, I'll send out the link here. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna send this post here and I think we can start. Okay, nice. Nice. Okay, so what I have tried also for the page events, because these are mostly the events inside the rendering engine, so the ones that the browser would emit. for any major event happening on the rendering queue or on a DOM event. So anytime you are requesting a new page, anytime it starts rendering, anytime it finishes rendering, stuff like that. It also prints potential candidates for the LCPs. So whenever a major event that would affect your performance or anything that that is of relevance would pop up, this is where the page events would be emitted. And what I've noticed yesterday when I was playing around with it, because I actually tried to open it and try to instrument that, it requires a separate domain enablement. So I have to enable the page domain. And the specific event I was listening to is a lifecycle event. So any lifecycle of a page, whether it's opened or finished rendering, DOM events, they all will be captured here. The thing is, if I have it instrumented like that, try to close this here. If I have it instrumented like that, the way the DevTools emit those events is a bit problematic for my existing implementation. And I will show you why in a while. So the test is running here, just a short iteration. And when I open the sinos here, services, I can do the last 3 hours, it's not a problem. Yes, should be easier. I'm really hoping my JMeter would still send out those events. Few problems. I think I'll have to restart the JMeter for it to emit. No, okay, it sent out some calls. That's fine. And the last one, let's see. Oh, the first one should be enough as well. This one, okay, this is the call. So when I have instrumented the page events also, my network instrumentation started capturing the DevTools calls, right? So we're going in circles instead of capturing the network events. I'm only right now having the DevTools calls. So these are the ones that would be capturing the page events, I guess. So I'll have to take another route. Another thing that I've noticed is that there were plenty of these events. So I had really a lot of these events popping up here and there. The examples of these are, for example, network idle, network almost idle, first meaningful paint. Sorry. So these events is what I'm looking for. Yeah, there's a lot of these been printed, at least from the browser. And I guess the push architecture might not be the best way for me for this implementation. So what I'm thinking right now, I don't have to wait for all these events to happen, and I don't have to act on these immediately. I just have to attach them as the events for my tests running. So instead of having a push architecture, I will go with a pull architecture. So I will have my browser store a list of a map or a map of these events along with the timestamps, and then after I finish my operations, I'm just going to capture them with a script similar to what I'm doing with core web vitals. Right, so I'm going to have a list of these events stored in a browser memory. Oh, hello, someone's just showing up here on the chat. Yes, you can say hello in the chat, whoever's joined. So I will have a pull architecture here, and I will just get and fetch the events that from the browser after I'm finished with some transaction. So yeah, I think that's about it. because I don't really know why. Whenever I enable this page domain, it just captures the DevTools calls as well. So and as soon as I turn it off, just this page domain in here, of course, one of the things I don't like here is that the browser doesn't like start from scratch with my current setup. I know that it's a config thing and I could configure it properly, but I have it configured right now that the browser would not turn off after my setup. The problem is it would not start even a new one because it still thinks that old one is running. Okay, this call is complete. I think we should see some calls in our collector. Okay, so this guy here. No, it's not the one. Why do I still see the DevTools calls? This should not be happening. No, it was something different. Okay, so as you can see, once I've disabled the page domain. Hey, Daniel. Hey, it's nice to see you here. I've disabled the page domain here, and I'm getting back the calls that are rendered from the browser. So yeah, I think I'll just go with a implementation that's similar to what I have with Core Web Vitals. So this is going to be a pull implementation. What I have in mind, maybe I'm just going to show you what I have in mind with a Web Vitals here. Whenever an event like a Web Vital occurs, right? So whenever I track a new one, I just store it in the local storage, right, of the window. And once I have it here, I also have a retrieval function that I can use that I'm attaching to the window object. So, and that's also pretty straightforward, right? So I'm just getting the vitals here from the window storage. If they're blank, that they're blank. But I also I have to clear them out after I fetch them, right? I'm not concerned about them, overpopulating something like that. But this gives me a constraint that I have to capture the log vitals after they are finished, right? So that's one of the challenges I have here. I'm not sure how to resolve it yet. To actually make sure that I have all the log web vitals that will occur and that I have captured them properly. Right now, my test is pretty trivial, so I am just waiting for some events to finish or some elements. Like I'm just picking some next elements that I know should be finished or should be actionable to capture those vitals. And in the next line, I just call this function that I've attached to the get core vitals and attaching them as attributes. Time series DB. You know what? I want to. Yes, I can do that. Sure. But I also want to get them inside JMeter and to push them to the OpenTelemetry collector. So the time series, that's the next step. But I also want to make sure that I'm capturing all of them, but not in the browser, not from the browser directly, right? So I don't want the browser to do anything, say over the DevTools, let's say, implementation. And I want the JMeter just to measure stuff and accumulate them and then send out, to various points. But yeah, time series, you can use anything really for that, because the main goal, like what I'm thinking right now, is to have an ability of going through, end user to the backend and back and forth, right? And I want to affiliate, like I want to have all the calls being unique. I'm not. Okay, that's fine. So I just want to have a full, end-to-end call, from the browser to the backend, getting all the calls. If there's something slow, I want to look at that, and that's just for a test execution for debugging, right? So it's not like a production load or something like heavy. It's there. Besides, I'm like, the implementation I have in mind is to have those browsers, those web drivers, sampling the front end performance rather than actually delivering the load, right? So just a few browser machines running alongside with a load test, right? So, and then from there, whenever I have, bad scores from Core Web Vitals, whenever I have some bad scores from the rendering part, or I see, some slow calls in here from the end user, I would just start investigation from there, right? And then you're gonna see, okay, this call was slow because this and that. That's the goal, at least here. So you're not gonna have many of these samplers, so I'm not worried about having pushing too much data in here. And I'm hoping that, say, OpenTelemetry collectors would solve this for me. They are time series ish implementations for anyways, right? So I should be able to then later get with the I was actually giving a try. You can get a sample dashboard here with a time series, and get some metrics from here, or not in metrics. You can get the traces. All right, so and you can see already get these, all the Core Web Vitals captured. That's also what I have in mind. So anything that doesn't require heavy load, anything that doesn't require many CPUs, span metrics as well. Out of what you mean? What do you mean by the span metrics? Oh, span metrics for the spans. Yes. Oh. Yeah. Okay. I think there's a delay in chat here, at least from what I'm seeing here. That's okay. That's fine. So the next step is I want for every operation that I have here. See the sign-offs. I'm still running everything locally, so I don't expect it to be too fast. But when I see what I see here, for example, I have some transactions. I want the page events to be attached to the operation, right? So these page events would have to be listed in here, right? Again, the sign-offs doesn't show them in here, like for example a tempo would, which I guess is kind of weird. I also was thinking about generating some traces or spans out of in between events timings, right? So you don't have to store them as spans, but as long as you have the events, you just run some queries and combine a time between the two events, which would make an artificial span, right? That would make more sense for some runtime analysis. That you don't have these spans anywhere, but as long as there's events happening inside a span, you don't have to explode your span numbers. You just add some events. I'm guessing they are lighter than the spans themselves. So having a correlation or analysis on the timings that are taken between some events, that will be more helpful for that. But yeah, visually it will also work well. but I guess it's just a Cynos that do not have it out of the box, at least. I have not really gone through the documentation there. I like the idea of, focus on the selected span, so, I can see when exactly the event occurs in relation to the start and stuff, but they also don't show up here, so it's missing here. Okay, back to the topic. I'm not a web expert, really, so what I'm thinking is I have to consult the best expert I know on web performance, which would be the GPT, but I guess it's down right now, so we are out of luck. Now, actually, we can just create a new file here. I don't have any experiences yet. Because first, I have not played around with Playwright at all. What I'm seeing right now from the instrumentation, at least that I have introduced here, this is very similar or very accurate to what the browser DevTools is reporting. And the Core Web Vitals, they are essentially a implementation of the UX. So I have not tested it as scaled yet. I'm just looking around and checking out what's actually possible for a single transaction. I'm not sure how a headless browser would actually capture the metrics accurately. I have no idea how it would do that. And I'm also not sure what metrics you can get out of Playwright. I've seen a Artillery.io. They have done something like get the browser page-ish along with the Core Web Vitals. But I'm not sure what the condition was to stop the measurements, right? Also, this could be the thing that the website itself is flaky, right? It's flaky. I'm also seeing stuff like, the difference in the response times for the same operation. But then when I look at the differences, I can already point out to the culprit of this, right? So when I have, for example, a call that is taking like a second here. Okay, this is maybe a better example because I'm still doing troubleshooting. But when I had a difference between the results, I could already point out to the culprit that was generated here, right? So if some call have not been cached or served from a backend, which should have been cached, stuff like that. This makes a great difference. So for example here. It could also be a GitHub Actions runner that is running in headless browser. Could be, but I'm not sure what's the what exactly headless browser will do differently than a rendered one, right? I'm guessing, of course, and your rendering part is straight out, so it's just probably some op. But I'm not sure how this affects the whole JavaScript that's running underneath, right? So it's really hard for me to tell right now or to guess. I have seen differences in in these measurements that I'm taking here, but for every occurrence of a weird and odd call, I could exactly pinpoint the culprit. And I could see them, varying from call to call. So, for example, in this case, like in case of a page that I'm testing here, this was cached call versus not cached call, right? And that was the main difference here. So and you could probably also, if it's a backend related thing, you would see these also in the for specific calls, right? So you can see some variance there. well, I've also have not seen anyone really capturing that to this extent, right? So do they actually so that you can replicate the whole browser performance with OpenTelemetry, right? So I've seen these implementations in the ROM agents for APMs, like AppDynamics, for example. This does this, similar granularity of the calls, but I have not seen anyone yet attempting to do that in OpenTelemetry. There are some agents for that, but yeah, I don't think they're stable enough to measure that. And I'm thinking the core web vitals is all that matters in this context, right? So that's I think they are capturing what's really like the goal there. Okay, so page details. Page details, and I have to actually did try this with a chat GPT to get me some script to store these events. Sorry, I'm not a browser expert really, so I'm really relying on the say at least to start up. I'm relying on here on the browser and ChatGPT. Okay, need a function here. Okay, so it's and this these are the network events. I don't need that. I don't need network events. I want this guy here. So does it even exist as a DevTools package? Okay, I can store the events list. Let's open up new thing here. Let's just copy this guy here. That should be useful. So new file, and I want a page. Couple of helper functions. So what it does, it takes the event type and event data. That's okay. Events list, push. Okay, and the local storage gets the events list. Okay, so the window object gets all the events here, and I get to have the events list. What about the date? Okay, the date is stored as soon as the event is emitted. That's important for me to track, because if I plan to pull them from the browser, I need to make sure that I have a good timestamp, although ISO string, what would be the resolution of this timestamp? Okay, we'll test it out. That's not a big deal, because I mean it would be a big deal, because if it's, for example, a millisecond resolution of a timestamp, it would be problematic, or there could be some discrepancy between the loading events here. So that's what I've seen, for example, when I was trying to get the Kafka events, when I had a Kafka timestamp granularity of a millisecond. I've seen some events that should have been happening like after the span had started. They were generated right before, because by default the timestamps in OpenTelemetry would be of microseconds, I guess. So yeah, that was a bit different. And could be problematic, but I don't think that would matter that much for the page events. We're not under sub millisecond resolution here Most of us are not, at least. And if we have an SLI for 1.2 seconds, I'm not even sure what it is, then I guess it should not be a problem. Okay, so we have a store event function, and I also want a window dev tools. Okay, so I guess the dev tools should be there. Capture network events. Okay, so if it's in load, I don't need the network events here. I just care about the page lifecycle events. The network I'm already capturing. Okay, this one is pretty smart. I've asked the GPT to exclude the DevTools calls, right? So it actually did that. The problem is it would not work because once I have enabled the page domain, this was never, like, the real calls were never emitted. So I'm not quite sure what the problem was there. And I'm not sure I even care. If I'm just going with the pool architecture, this would not be much of a deal. Okay, so I have this function here to the store events. I have a listener on load. I'm not even sure that the load is the right event to listen to. But let's see. Okay, so so this sends out the param, event type, event data, and the timestamp. That's okay, and it goes in the list, right? So this is the listener, and it gets these to local storage. That's very important because if I inject these JavaScript as an extension, as I'm doing with Web Vitals, the window object, that's a bit strange for me, but a window object is not the same when I open it with a DevTools session, for example, right? So that's a bit strange. So for example, when you define, and try to attach some objects to the window or some functions to the window, they no longer exist after, outside of the scope of this extension. That's something I've learned. Maybe it's because you're working on a copy of this window and it doesn't copy all the details. I'm not really sure. But if you just attach this as an extension, chances are you would not see. Now, for example, I've dropped all the references here, but I had to use the local storage for that so that it can be persisted and accessed outside of the scope of the extension, right? So yeah, that's a bit strange for me at least, but it doesn't matter. Let's continue. Okay, so I'm adding a listener here on a load event. Get me the dev tools and add a lifecycle event here. Yeah, that should be fine. I guess lifecycle event, and it stores the page lifecycle event. So where does the event type gets in the picture? What's the event data? We'll have to find out. Okay, so that's the page event, and I also want to retrieve the retrieval functions. You know what? I will just do it here. Get page events, and this is going to be function returning. If I'm doing something stupid and anyone sees that I'm doing something very stupid or wrong, just you can always correct me. I'm actually counting on it. Okay, so this guy is going to work similar, although I will just get the events, which were called events list. And that's a list. Now we have here a events list. I also want to clear this out because I don't want any events being passed over to the. So when I have a new event, for example, when I'm clearing this, I don't want them to be cloned and passed to the next operation, next transaction. So for now, I'm just gonna clear it. I know and I understand that there will be some occasions when I, for example, emit some events between the actions. So when I have a page opening and there are still some events sent in, they would be stored in the local storage of the browser. I'm aware of that right now, but I don't care for now yet about it. So I just want this functionality to be, at least some presentable to the OpenTelemetry. So the simplest solution for now is like, and the working solution is the best, and we can then improve. But I understand that there's a risk here. Okay. So we are at the local storage events list, get page events, that should do it. And I think, okay, I have to also add that to the manifest file. I'm not sure. Document start. The background script I can already delete because it doesn't do anything. Web vitals, and I want the page events JS. All right, so I have a page events JS, and I have a function to retrieve these. It is going to be available on the document idle. So once nothing happens, they will be defined. Probably not also not the best strategy to have, but that's the best I have for now. Okay. Now web vitals, and if I'm correct, I should also page events. Return. So, and I can just log it. Now, let's see what the events we would capture here. Let's see. That's a first attempt. It's a bit slower than usual. Okay. Something did happen. Is that an error of mine? No, it's not. Okay, that's a standard error. These are some events for the captured calls. I'm afraid the page events did not occur then yet. Why would that be? Let's see, console. Cannot read properties of undefined reading page at the page events. Okay, that's a new one. I mean, not a new one, but that's still something better than nothing. That's the reason why we didn't get any page events. So the question is, do we have a DevTools defined? Nope. They are not defined here. That's odd, and that's embarrassing for not for me maybe, but for the ChatGPT. Let's see what it was trying to get me here. Events list. Okay, how do I enable DevTools there? Okay, so it doesn't get any options, just creates a settings here. Enables page domains. Not sure I actually want that. But maybe this is a key to capturing these events. Okay, I'm doing a lot of guesswork here, and so this may take a while. I'm only interested in the page events here. This should be okay. What's that? I want to use this JS as a browser extension. Let's see if ChatGPT does anything worth mentioning here. Permissions, debugger scripting. Why would it be a pop-up here? Execute script, not sure. Enable DevTools. Oh, okay, so it doesn't. Okay, so you have to send a command to the debugger to enable these events. What the hell is happening here? But I have these events already defined. Okay, so it suggested me to use the debugger for these page events. And it does that for specific tabs, like tab ID. That's a weird combo. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks. And yeah, have a nice day. Okay, so this is just listening to all the events side. I really was expecting that would be a bit easier, because the one that it suggested at first was to listen to the specific events. I'm not sure how the window DevTools is actually defined in here. That's a bit weird because it still relies on enabling this page domain. If it does that, and I still have to use this page events for my session, it will be way easier if I just filter out the network calls. I don't want to do that. I'm really just interested in executing the script here. But on the other hand, I would not be able to get the DevTools here. That's interesting. I'm not gonna see me struggling with basic tasks. Nice. Add script to evaluate on document. As opposed to the other implementation. Background and context scripts, injecting JavaScript to enable DevTools listen for. Does it actually require the debugging? Is that a pop-up JS? What's the pop-up for? Oh, it wants to show me this DevTools events is a form of pop-up. Okay, I have not expected that, nor did I request it. Page load events before unload. Okay, it's got something new. To interact with the DevTools protocol directly from a browser extension, enabling the debugger is necessary. This is because protocols blah blah blah. However, if you want to avoid the debugger, instead of capturing events through the normal JavaScript environment, you'll be limited to what you can capture using standard web APIs. Low-level network and page events, but you can still capture user interactions and some page lifecycle events. Okay, what are the page lifecycle events I can capture from here? I can capture the click events. That's okay, I guess. Not a bad idea. Page loads, that's also fine. Before unload, that's also okay. Ajax request, I'm capturing these via network protocols. Fetch request, that's also good, I guess. And also DOM content loaded. That's also an event that I can capture from there. Let's start with that. Let's add these events, the pretty simple one, the pretty trivial ones, and And I think that's going to be it, because if I was to enable the debugger and still get the page domain here, I don't think this would bring any help to that. Okay, capture page load events before unload. Just going to do this. AJAX request. I don't have to capture the AJAX requests because I'm capturing all the network already. That's fine, I guess. I'm just going to add these, but also with a DOM content loaded. These are the ones that I can just load as there. And I think App Dynamics does something similar in terms of these events. So it doesn't like enable the debugger or anything. It just captures raw events that are available and in the JavaScript. So that's fine, I guess. Okay, okay. Nice. See some reactions on LinkedIn, but very few people are actually joining. I know, guys, this is an unsolicited live stream and stuff. I will try to get it more structured and maybe add some timelines there. But yeah, it's hard for me yet to do that when I still have a small kid. So, but I will try to get it more structured in the future. Okay, so get these events, click events, load events, before unload events. Again, Ajax I don't need. So let's do this rotation here. Page events instead of getting the lifecycle events. I just have to stick with all these. Event listener load before unload. And whatever else. See that? This also should be an event that I'm interested in. Did not. It did not recommend it. And I'm pretty sure I saw App Dynamics ROM doing that. Cool. DOM content loaded. Cool, so we are going to add that as well. Store event, but also have to get the details. These events somehow. Okay, URL, I don't think I need the URL because I'm gonna have it in my collector. So this detail is redundant here. DOM content loaded. That's nice. Okay. Got it here. I'm adding these events already. Let's see if this thing works now. They should be available as details. Cool. So let's start. Bit of validation. Okay, and let's see if any details are printed now. Or if there's an exception. Let's see. No, it's not an exception, it's just a start trace. I don't really like this WebDriver when it spins up. You can see here, the first you think of seeing a stack trace printed out is, okay, there was an error. Now there is no error, it just prints the stack trace with a session ID. But it's a bit problematic. So, you see some error messages there, some error codec decode, whatever. But it's not really an error, it's just a stack trace printed. Okay, so we had here few details. This should be the log entry with the page events I was trying to get, but there is none. So let's see the console. Push does not exist at store event. Let's see why that is. I may have a few ideas. Window events lists, push events. That's the problem, I guess. Windows events list. This either is not defined or still we have some problems again with the. Yeah, it's just not defined here. See here, it's just not defined. So we can try the easy way. If it's just in the context of these events, I can just do it like that. That just get it clear. So get me these store events. I can just get the local storage, right? How to do that in JavaScript? What I'm guessing here, I have to define this event somewhere. Okay. Window events list here. Yes, okay, it has to be a list. The problem is here, I still have to clear out those events somehow in here. Oh, I think I know it. The window event equal local storage get item and get the events list. Okay, get the events list, or give me an empty array. Guess I can still do that, right? I cannot rely on the window events. I have to use the local storage one all the times, because the window object is not the same between the extension and the DevTools sessions. So I cannot store these as a window. I have to use a shared storage object here. So I think I'm just going to do that here. So events list push, and I can just push this event further. That should do it. I guess, but it's like I'm not a JavaScript expert. I really hate fraud and stuff. So I guess it's a good exercise for me and for you guys to see me struggling. Cool. I'm just gonna run a short validation. Let's see if this works. Okay, so let's see if something's changed. I can still see some errors. Events list push is not a function. Then what is it? I was expecting a I was really expecting. Oh, hi Joe. Yeah, I'm a bit longer today here, so that should be fine. Today I'm struggling with JavaScript, so the worst of the least of my favorite technologies. And I'm trying to capture page events from the Selenium WebDriver, and I want to print them. In the or store them in my OpenTelemetry instrumentation. I was trying to plug in my phone using the charger that I've used for a laptop, but I guess it impacts my streamability, if that's a thing. I will have to probably unplug my camera to use it. I just need a power source somewhere here, and maybe I'll just mount it. A bit of technical break, maybe. I think this should be fine. So many cables here. Just have to pick the right one, and then the right source for this power. Okay, let's see. Because my phone is slowly going down. Let's see. Okay, now it works. For Lava.js, yes, that's my favorite topic, my favorite subject, and I'll try to sharpen myself. I don't think that's really necessary. Although, no, some integration with any IDE would be fine, I guess. But still, the thing about writing and in JMeter writing code, it really helps you think about a code like syntax. And once you get a hold of that, it doesn't really matter. You still have to learn those functions and the code at once, but by heart. You still have to go through the documentation, like the docs of every function to really do it right? So I know that for if you don't code a lot and you don't rely on and you rely on IDEs for autocomplete, for validation, for like static analysis of a code, that's very helpful. But then, once you, for example, have to do the static analysis or a peer review of someone's code without running it, over some GitHub, then this like skill really helps because you will see exactly, okay, this, function isn't like properly done, and knowing the classes that you are constrained to use is also not a bad idea, right? So for me, like I could use some IDE right now and just copy over the scripts straight to the JMeter. It's not a big problem for me, but I've like treated it as an exercise for my language skills and for some certain libraries. So if someone has any ideas for the IDE, like integration with those tools, but then by all means, that's not a bad thing. I'm pretty sure if you have your tests structured well, like I don't like not for a normal or for big projects, I never really, or it's very rare for me to actually store the scripts in here as a as a text. I would normally have a reference to some script there, like somewhere to the path to the script instead, and then have it open in some IDE like Visual Studio Code or anything more useful. So this is a mental exercise for me to get a hold of the language and the methods, and it really keeps me up to speed and up to date with existing libraries and existing functionalities, right? Because you have to go through the doc files, you have to go through the Java docs in this case, for example, and you have to really know what you're doing, right? And then you understand, there's also there's always some snippet of text that is going to pop up there. Oh, see here, even data. Okay, that's a bit nice. Even data, it's the URL DOM content loaded. I haven't seen that. Maybe just move it around here. This thing actually returns an event. Why would it return it right now and not the... Yeah, I mean, IDEs in itself are not a bad thing, right? The problem is if you just over rely on it, and the IDE stops recommending you the features you want, or you use the wrong one for the wrong reasons because it firstly popped up, then you might be in trouble, right? Or you end up with a undefined behavior of your code, right? And that's especially like true for C++ when you just use any function and you know that this behavior is undefined. With like languages that just guide you by hand, like Java, it's not a big deal. But there would be some difference in the functionalities, and there will be some difference in performance, right, of the classes that you're going to use. So knowing that and knowing exactly what you're planning to use is an important skill, but you have to learn it over time. It's not something you'll just which is gonna snap in your head someday. It is really something you have to practice and learn. But that's a good exercise if that it's actually making you to read the documentation to understand what you want to do, right? Okay, cool. So I do have some events here. So I have a DOM content loaded, captured with the timestamp. And I guess the resolution is up to the milliseconds. It's not a bad resolution here. Cool. So the question is, why then did I have error? I know why that is. Okay, so I captured the first event, but there is a bug in the code. Because I'm storing that as a JSON stringify event. So essentially it's a string, not a JSON object. But I want to extract this array here, which is probably, and most probably, colliding. So I need a JSON parse here. Or just give me an array, right? So this would be a string, and this would end up as a list. So if it exists, I'm just gonna parse this event, and if it doesn't, I'm just gonna get a new one. That's fine. That's I guess not a bad thing. But now, okay, and I think this should work. This should solve the errors here. Because what happened then is I was returning the blank object here. It was converted to a string. And at the first attempt, it worked because I could just generate a new list array. I don't know even what's it called in the JavaScript. But on the second attempt, when the events list was existed in the storage, it was already a string, right? And then when I was trying to use the push function on this object, it was already a string. So the string doesn't have a push guess in JavaScript, but everything is possible in JavaScript world. Yeah. Cool. But it would not have the same behavior. Even if you could push stuff to a string, it would not end up with a valid JSON object anyways. Cool. Let's start again. I saw Scott Moore has shared my stream details on LinkedIn, and I really hope you see that I'm testing stuff on the DevPerfOps webpage. Scott, if you're seeing this, that's intentional. Okay, I'm still getting an error that the events list push is not an not a function. That's a. So what is a? Okay, I think I can do it like this here. Why is that not a function then? Why is that not a? Okay, this guy. Why is that an object? I don't even know what these objects, what these things are called in the front end here. So I'm trying to parse this item, but it gives me a blank object. Why would that be? Local storage, get item, events list. Let's see if this even exists here. I was expecting an array here, right? Instead of JSON. But it gives me get item. Okay, this one is null. Why would this be blank? Because see here, it just returns an empty JSON. And I was hoping for an array. Like this. Then I would just stringify these events to a list. I mean, I would stringify the list of events, right? Why then? And then if I just had this list here, this would push stuff here. Hold on a second. What if I... Okay, so the storage is blank. What does... Okay, this guy returns... If there's an empty object, if this if this object doesn't exist in the local storage, it just gives me a null. Ah, you guys are not seeing it. Why don't you even tell me that? I'm just debugging here on the code. On the console. So if I get the local storage get item list and I try to parse it with a JSON function, it just gives me a null. This because this guy doesn't exist, right? If I do it like that, it returns a JSON object, a blank one. So this means the object has been defined already somehow. Why would that be? Maybe I'm doing it here right now and I should not be doing it. Okay, I know what happens. This is the culprit here. Because this should be an empty array. So the way I have... Yeah, instead of a JSON, this should be a... there should be a list object. So there was a problem here. So with the definition here, I had a vitals because I knew I'm just gonna have a few items there. But since the events list can have multiple events for the multiple of the same events, I needed to use a list. So it's my bad again. That's fine. We've learned something. At least I have. So let's test it out right now. Now I'm guessing, yeah, the errors are gone from the console, so that should be okay, I guess. These are already the core web vitals mentioned here. It's also nice. And web files are there. I need the page events to be extracted on each of the steps, because it also does a cleaning of these for every web page, and if they are not defined, they would end up be attached to a wrong span, which I'm trying to avoid. Okay, page events, dirty debugging, not do that like that. I'm sorry. That's the major downside of this thing, is that, hey, if you want to debug with this with the IDE, it just doesn't exist. So yeah, this is the biggest problem with this. Now, with having no IDE stuff, really no debugging, so counterproductive. Okay, so I'm trying to do that with JMeter and the Selenium WebDriver. But the real goal here is to have all the details available for Selenium, like for all the details captured by the Selenium WebDriver. And I want them to be forwarded both to JMeter reporting and also to OpenTelemetry, right? So we already have a few things implemented. By we, I mean me and myself and I. So this is the span generated by the browser, right? So so when you open up the Selenium WebDriver, you're gonna see these spans generated in the OpenTelemetry collector. So this is done like by the combination of a JavaScript extension, so the extension for the browser, Selenium WebDriver, and JMeter, which acts as a generator of the operations, and also it captures all the details and forwards them to the OpenTelemetry collector. So that's a bit of complex here. I don't want it to be sent directly by the browser, because I don't want it to affect these transactions, and I also want to persist the context of and the intention of the test, right? So and see here, opening the dev proof ops page, that's exactly what the user would be doing, right? So the user opens up a page. This is all the details. This is how long it takes to open this page. This is all the details and all the backend calls that the browser had made to do that. And also you're gonna see some events like if they appear here. No, I don't see any events here. And also the events of tags should be there, like core web vitals in this setup, right? So you can measure these with JMeter, and the target, say, implementation would be that you're gonna have a load test running for the backend, And you can already measure the user experience from the front end as well, right? With a bit of, with a few browsers, a few Selenium drivers, you're gonna have the metrics and how the backend affects your front end, right? That's a big combo of them all, and you can just push it into the CI/CD and have these measurements, similar to what you have in a like Lighthouse scores, but then it's a bit more advanced, and you can trace down what exactly like was slow from both the front end and from the back end, right? So that's a great combo here. If you have a limited resources for performance engineers and you want them to do it all, then that's proposed solution, right? Okay, but the goal here right now is to get the also on top of the spans. I also want to add the events for the page loading. So initially, I was trying to get all the page events, which would be very extensive, but it had messed up with my network captures, so with the capturing of the backend calls. So right now I'm just extracting all the details that I can get with raw JavaScript. So just adding listeners for specific events to also add them as events to the events of the web page, right? So they will appear here as an event, and I will see exactly, hey, when did the page stop loading, if it stopped loading even or not, and stuff like that. And when the DOM was completed, that's the basic, at least, assumption. Does this answer your question? Okay, and you can see here, I'm getting the event data. So all the events here, and there are timestamps. So I'm interested mostly right now in the event data here. Like, okay, I want the event type and I want the timestamp to be parsed, and I can already add these as events for my actions, right? So event data, I can also add them as attributes probably, but I'm not sure I could easily. We could easily probably flatten this out because they will be actually JSON objects for some reason. And thanks, Joe. And if you think that's very dumb of what I'm doing right now, just let me know. Because I don't really don't know if it's like I suspect it's gonna be useful for many use cases, but I'm not sure, it's actually expected of for anyone. Okay, so since I have these events loaded, I can just add a listener to that, I guess. I'm just going to do a dirty coding here. Okay, let's start with the first transaction here. So this should capture the web vitals. This should capture the page events. Now, the main problem I have with the Groovy stuff is I don't even know what the class I'm working here with. Guessing this would be a linked hash map object, but I don't really know. So see here, for example, web vitals key set. This would be a hash map because and this comes down to the dynamicity of the objects here. What I'm gonna do to learn the class here, I probably do not have it overwritten, so the page events is going to be throwing an error that I don't have overridden the string variables. So I'm going to learn what the class here is, and I have to flatten out the structure slightly. That's a bit problematic when you extract a JSON object with Java and with Groovy, albeit it's slightly easier with Groovy. You know what? I think people start to realize the value of OpenTelemetry, and I think the movement here is going to be much faster than we would expect. It's like already slowly maturing as a project and as a tool, and even if you have an existing APM solution, the APM vendors are also adapting it because they see it as a valuable thing. So all the drawbacks that you could not have with existing APM tools, like, hey, I need a custom correlation thing, right? And because if they, for example, have some traces available or some metrics available for the transaction, and it was broken because like they could not relate, like they could not maintain the context of it. And I've seen it happening, like when there were, for example, a transactions or the calls to the systems where the context of a thread, for example, was not maintained. Right, there were some async calls, there were some weird communications on some unsupported protocols, and that ended up with with a mix and match of various like spans. I could not tell precisely and fast why a certain call would be slow, right? This was a problem, and this was a big one, at least for me. So having a option to debug and to this context here, having an option to customize the correlation, it's a big win, right? For everyone, really. But yeah, well, I'm not sure how far we are with adoption it to everywhere. The options are there, and right now it's just a matter of of the OpenTelemetry collector vendors, and for the analysis to actually show this value above the APMs, right? Because it's not just about OpenTelemetry and the instrumentation of the transaction and of the application. It is also a question of changing the mindset of how you're going to actually do your reporting, how you're going to do your troubleshooting. Yeah, it's not just a switch from one tool to another. I think there's this way more stuff at play here. Okay, I'm getting some errors right now, which I'm not sure they should be happening. I could be. I'll just try to restart JMeter. Running. Is that what you call a test, Mr. JMeter? Restart. Oh. Why is this not restarted? Why is this guy starting and this guy isn't? I don't like this. Shut down. Why is this window not shutting down? Interesting. That's interesting. I think I broke JMeter. Nice. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave that. Maybe because of this context is still held here, so that the window didn't shut down, but it should be, right? Ah, yeah, now it did. Okay, so it was still holding the proxy for the browser. Okay, let's open up here. Recent. Let's see if these errors still persist. I think this was some hiccups just between the JMeter and the browser. All the elements should be running normally. What the hell is happening? I'm seeing some errors. Like 2 of them. plugins, unknown protocol. That's okay because that's the first call that is called here by the. You guys don't see it, of course, because my face is here. It was a single error. What was the change that I made here? This guy is done. This should be okay, I guess. Could not change anything to this guy. The only thing I have changed really was to print this page events. What the hell is happening? I think I broke it. No, seriously, I think I have to restart everything again. Because this page doesn't even load now. It was. There's no errors anywhere. It's just loading. Or maybe the dev perf ops is down. Oh. Oh, it does. Okay, it does some redirections already. Cool, it started working, I guess. Dev perf ops. Could it be down? Let's check the other page. Like, I'm not running any bloat tests or anything like that. It responds. Okay, it's always active. Okay, I think I'll have to restart everything because that's it's a bit weird. It doesn't return any errors. It still captures some calls. That's just very weird. That's very odd. Okay, I'm just gonna stop it here. Just gonna close all the instances of my WebDriver. That's possible. Oh, and my camera just fell down. That's a very bad thing. Because that's my favorite camera. See how stressed I am right now? It even wants to change my composition. So, see guys, technical issues, they do happen. I really thought I had it in a good stand. It's just a bit off. Sorry for this, guys. It was not expected. Okay, let's start again. But I think I'll have to restart my laptop. Okay, and I think that's a good place to finish for the day, I guess. Maybe, yeah, I'll try to schedule a better time for tomorrow. I'll have to, of course, align with my wife that I can do that. But I'll try to schedule a time slot most suitable for you to see. Yeah, and we can work on that. We can continue on implementation. I'm not sure why this stopped working for suddenly, but I've seen the occurrences of the JMeter was opened or had too many instances of WebDriver opened. There was some discrepancy and then some mix between a JVM and the WebDriver. So yeah, I think that's a good place to stop for today. Thank you everyone for watching, and yeah, I'll schedule a next session for a live stream. Cool, thank you.